If you have any kind of status, and I don't mean like you're super famous, I just mean like maybe you're respected in a role somewhere, whatever it is, you never know what kind of effect you're going to have on somebody. And I want to talk about that in this video and the time I met Chester Bennington. Okay, so before I get started, I just want to let you know I have a few spots open for breakthrough calls. There's a link pinned in the comment section below. So breakthrough call is just a 30-minute call where we get on Zoom. I just kind of help you find and troubleshoot where you're blocked and stuck in your life. You know, kind of what's coming up underneath the surface and surface. I helped you troubleshoot where you're blocked or stuck in your life, and then help you resolve it and find some solutions for what you can do to really step into your highest timeline. Okay, so one of my soul coaches a long time ago, she wrote a blog called "The Smile That Changed My Life," and it was a really interesting blog, and it's kind of the topic of this video. She's talking about how she was just walking around Germany one day, stuck in her head, really depressed, in a really bad mood, just kind of lost in her thoughts, and someone that she didn't know who this person was. This person just looked at her and just smiled at her. And she had this big radiating kind of warm energy. And she said it changed her whole life. Because it was like this stranger, for no reason, just acknowledged her and was kind. And this is such an important thing to understand. I had an experience kind of like this with Chester. I feel kind of weird talking about it because I don't want to like use somebody's name to try to get view. Like that's not what I'm doing. I just kind of want to talk about it because it was really important to me. So I have to tell a little bit of my story. You know, for anyone who's seen my videos, for those who haven't, like I always wanted to be a rock star and a comedian. Those are like my two things that I always wanted to do. And when I was a kid, I got close to a record deal, but I just wasn't ready. And I always just had massive amounts of depression and tiredness and chronic fatigue and trauma. So there was no way I was going to make it back then. And I got into drugs to self-medicate. For 9 years, I was a junkie and a crackhead and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then I got sober. But I loved, you know, like growing up, my favorite bands were Alice in Chains and Lane Staley, and I got a million Lane Staley stories I'll tell some other time. But in 2000, when Linkin Park came out, about that time, I got really into Linkin Park, okay? And I loved Chester Bennington. I thought he was amazing. Now, growing up, socially, I always felt just like a total fucking outcast. I had friends, I did. I wasn't unpopular. I wasn't the most popular group in high school. I was in like, you know, like second or third string group. We were like pretty cool, like the super cool kids. Some of them knew who I was. And they were like, hey man, what's going on? They'd say hi to me in the halls, but I didn't get invited to their parties. Anyway, I spent a long time being super shy in social circles, feeling really uncomfortable because I was so sensitive and because I grew up in a time it was like kind of cool to be like a dick. You know, people use the F word. They call each other fag. I mean, it's a horrible word, but that's what they did back then. And there was this one group kind of a little bit before high school. When those kids started, I met this kid in second grade who I would repeatedly try to hang out with for a year or two at a time. And I don't know who can relate to this, but when you're kind of shy and you're kind of quiet and you kind of don't know what to say because you just freeze around people and you always want to say something like valuable or funny or cool, and there's that moment in the social circle where all the other people are saying stuff and they're laughing, and then you go to talk and you say the wrong thing and everyone kind of looks at you like, you dumb fuck, what was that? Like, I had a lot of those moments because I was so shy and I would freeze. And you know, if they would say something and you could say something back, you could get yourself out of it, but I couldn't because I could never talk. I was neurodivergent, I was autistic, I was, you know, dissociated, like a super sensitive, empathic, whatever. So I hated those moments, and I hated standing in social circles. And I with this particular group, where there was like the leader and all the other guys who'd razz each other and I never fit, I felt like shit about I hated myself in this group because I could never keep up and I could never be like one of the main dudes. It was like funny and relevant. Like they'd all go to the mall and they would never invite me, but I'd just hang out with them anyway. I'm like, and then finally I broke off and found my own friends. But this is very important because these kids were no one. They were just kids in elementary school, junior high school, and high school who thought they were someone because they had a little bit of status in this group. Okay? So it's important to understand how much those moments affected me and how deeply traumatized I was by them, because I felt like I couldn't really have friends. I couldn't connect to people. I was never good enough. I was never witty enough. I was never quick enough. I was never any of those things. And so after drug addiction and rehab, I would just kind of retreat and stay by myself because social circles were so uncomfortable. And since then, it's different. But that's where I'm coming from. I'm just terrified of social circles. Well, before I got sober, a little bit before, I knew someone who was in Lincoln Park for a little while. And it wasn't Chester, but I knew him. And one day I went somewhere with him and Chester was there, and this was after years of drug addiction. So I was shy and silent before. This is like after brain damage, after like doing heroin and cocaine to the point where I'd have like transient ischemic attacks, which are like minor strokes. I couldn't understand or speak. I hardly spoke for years. We had this one guy who stayed with us in my parents' house for a couple of years, and one day it like hurt me so bad. When someone said something, he's like, Adam, that dude says like two words a year. And I hated that because I always wanted to be, verbal. So we go there and Chester's there. And so I'm just a wallflower in this conversation, right? Because he's talking, the guy in Lincoln Park's talking to Chester, and there's a bunch of other guys like standing around, just listening to Chester. I will never forget this as long as I live. Something happened, like off in the distance. I think someone like some car backed out really fast, and I don't know why I said it, but I made this joke. I was like, oh, someone's dead or something like that. It wasn't that funny, but I made this joke expecting it to just fall flat and bomb. Like, who the fuck is this guy? Chester turned and he looked at me and he smiled and he laughed. And he laughed with there was like this warmth to him that was so inclusive to me. It was like he was accepting of me. He like welcomed me energetically into that circle and like looked right at me and connected to me in that moment. And that was the only connection we had. But I remember going, like, what the fuck was that? Like, I expected to get the reaction that I got from, some of the dicky kind of friends I had in elementary school and junior high school who weren't anyone, and that was fucking Chester Bennington. And I walked away from that to this day, as you can tell. I remember that. I will never forget that. Just that moment of like recognition and validation to some nobody. And I'm not a nobody. We're not nobodies because we're not rock stars. That's not the truth, but that's how we see it as humans. And I keep that in my mind. Like, I don't have much status right now, but you never know what kind of effect you're going to have on somebody. You don't have to be Chester to have that effect on somebody. You don't know who looks at you in what way. You don't know how they feel about you. You don't know what's going on in someone else's mind or their heart or their emotions. You have no idea. And if you're in a bad mood and you're grumpy, or whatever, that's fine. You don't need to constantly try to be in this perfect mood. But just have a little awareness of how just a little bit of kindness and acknowledgement to people authentically can change your life in a way. And I just wanted to share that with whoever needed to hear it. It was a big deal to me, and we all can do that for each other in various ways. before I finish, I just want to wrap up. I remember reading this book, I don't know if it's The Journey of Souls or Destiny of Souls or something like that. And it's about people, the soul journey after you cross or go to the other side. And there's this guy who brought people down into hypnosis and kind of got stories from the other side, or the spirit, or the life reviews people would do after the life, and what spirit guides would say and stuff like that. And one of them was like kind of channeling a life review they'd had prior with their guides. And it was a life where they were kind of really busy and working and trying to make a lot of money and whatever. And the guy had asked their spirit guides, is there anything else like I could do? And what the spirit guide said is, well, what we would like to see more of is this. And they showed this guy this moment in his life. It was one of the few moments where he did something like this in that particular life, where he was at a bus stop and he was about to get on a bus, and this woman was just sitting on the bench crying. And he could have just ignored it. He could have just got on the bus. He could have done whatever it was that he was going to do. But for whatever reason in that moment, he just went over and sat down next to her and just started talking to her and like asked if she was okay. And there was no motive. There was no agenda. He wasn't trying to get anything. He just was honestly just kind of checking in with her. And they're like, that's what we'd like to see more of. So that's how I kind of want to end this video. Thank you so much for watching. I have a free energy clearing in the description below. Please let me know what you think of this video, comments, revelations, breakthroughs, questions. Other than that, thank you so much. I look forward to next time, and peace.